Hello. In this section, we will work on the UI part of our game. And what I mean by that is mainly the level part of the UI. As you can tell, right now it's pretty empty, and what we should have on this left side is the amount of lives of our player and the tanks left to destroy. So let's handle that. And to actually get this going, I will start by creating a new empty node, and I will call this game manager. I don't really like that name, but we need one node that we can treat as like the God object to communicate between all other nodes. So let's add a script here and going to scripts. Let's create this game manager. Let's create a class. And what we'll have here is we'll have this one is going to actually handle the lives of player. Game manager height autoload singleton. Let's see. Do we have that already? Global scenes game manager. So this gets auto-loaded for some reason. Oh, we already have that. Perfect. So we need to get rid of that and move that to scripts. And in here, it loads from scripts. Perfect. So with all of that set up, what we can do is we can start working on our UI. So let's add a canvas layer and let's move it like here and call this UI, and we will save that scene as a branch. So go to scenes, save this, and this way we can open it up as a separate branch. And let's start adding. So we'll create this left side panel in our UI by using color rect first. And let me see, when it comes to a color, we need something grayish. So that's the value I have chosen. This is 4C, 4C, 4C. And when it comes to setting this up, we would like it to be on the left side and actually span across. One thing that we need for it is to set the anchor point, container sizing, and so on and so forth. So let's see. The problem is, of course, the size. I will set to 192. And then the anchor preset. Well, basically, if we run it right now, it's not visible because it's outside of the camera bound. So we need to position it inside of our camera. And now it's here. And this is going to be the place where our UI will live. So let's start by adding margin container. Each span across, and can just override the beam overrides, and the value here is 42 for everything. Perfect. So this is done. The next node we need is VBox container because we would like to stack stuff horizontally. And what we will need is a grid. So grid container, and I will call this player lives grid. Well, basically, is this player lives grid container? This is more like enemies grid container, to be honest. And let's make sure to access as unique name. And then below we are adding another VBox container, but this should be a child of VBox container. And here we will add a label. And I would like to call this one player because that's how it is in the original game. So alignment should be center, center. And going to theme overrides, we have a font for that, or we don't. So in the assets, let's create new folder and call this font. And then I can just drop it. And this is Minecraft font that I am using, but you can use anything you'd like. So now I should be able to click load this. And of course, for our label, we need to change the color to black and then the size. So font size should be 42. Perfect. And then below that, we need to create an HBox container. And this is going to hold the information about the lives of the player. So we need a texture rect. And here we must be smart when it comes to the texture. So let me see. There are two ways to do this. Showing file another. Yes, actually, we can use and this is a cool trick. Normally, as you can see here, there's no texture region in texture rect for UI. There is one, and we are using one when it comes to I don't know, for example, the eagle, right? We are using texture with a region, right? But there's none for the UI texture rect. But what we can do is go to texture, new atlas texture, and then as you can see, we can load the atlas and edit region. So what I can do is just load this, right? And then I can edit region to actually match what I need. So this should be 16 by 16, I believe. So now it's one more here and one more here, even it goes out of bounds, but it doesn't matter. So now, as you can see, I actually can use this part as a region, but I need to use atlas texture. So the size of it, it should be 48 by 48. let's see, 48 by 48. Perfect. And I should be able to, I believe, find modulate. And I will make it just red, like that. Any kind of red will work. Okay. And next to it, I will add a simple label. And I will call this player lives label. And let's see, by default, I can set it to free. But of course, we need to specify theme overrides. And of course, it could be done with theme, but there's not so much UI when it comes to this game. Okay, let's see, alignment should be set to center. And I believe we're done when it comes to this part. Center. And that's good. Let me just fix the alignment here to center, but this does not matter really. Okay, so we have that, and this is everything we need for our UI, so we can just start scripting. So let's go to scripts and open and create. And this is going to be rather simple. We need just few things, right? We need to populate the enemies, and then update player lives when something happens. Okay, so let's get references to the stuff that we need, and this is enemies grid container, and we can access as unique name player lives label. And what we need is to set the texture for enemies. And this can be achieved rather easily. In assets, I can create new resource. That's going to be Atlas texture. I'm going to save this as enemy UI texture. I will load the Atlas from Battle City 5, and then I will edit region to match this. So let's drag this, because this is just a resource, so we can save it, which is really good. Let's try to make it 16 by 16. Okay, perfect. We close this, we can save this, and we have enemy texture, and I can get a reference to that. And then what I can do for the ready function, say for I in 20s, and just to not make any magic numbers, I can say enemies per level, and I am putting it right here because I know that in the original games it doesn't change. It doesn't matter the level, it's always 20. So what I can do is create texture rect by calling the constructor new, saying that texture rect texture is an enemy UI texture, and I need to set the custom minimum size. That's the vector of, I believe we can again go 48 by 48, and player live enemies grid container at child texture rect. let's see whether that works. So we're using this here in UI, and when running this, okay, I have it. The problem is the amount of the columns, because everything right now gets into one column, and I believe that the default design is to have 2 or 3. Let's see. Let's try 3 columns. Okay, yeah. Now we can see the amount of the enemies that we have in our level. Perfect. So now we have that populated. And what I can also do is I can say that we need to set the amount of lives for our player. So I'll create a function called this update player lives with player lives as an int, and say player lives label text is equal to str to convert to string player lives. And at the start, what I can do is say update player lives, get game manager, and we have player lives there. And then in our game manager, I will require the reference to UI. And I can say UI should be of class, well, it should be of class UI, right? So let's create a class here. Okay, and that allows me to say here game manager UI is equal to self, and we can set it here because it is ready. So then in game manager, I need to create 2 functions. One function is called decrease player lives, and I can say that, well, UI should be set at this moment, right? So there's no need to check. So I can say player lives minus equals 1, and if player lives is not equal to 0, I can say UI update player lives. Perfect. And that should work. Okay, no errors there. What is most interesting is what should happen when the enemy gets destroyed. And to handle that, we'll go to enemy spawner, and here on, when we destroy an enemy, we will emit the signal enemy destroyed, and we can say enemy destroyed emit, and then knowing that we have that signal in the enemy spawner, can go to node and connect this. I can connect this to the, I should be able to connect this to game manager, but there's none currently. So what can we do? We can just trigger that globally then. So I can say game another enemy destroyed, and I don't need a signal. Perfect. So what should happen in enemy destroyed? Well, nothing much really. We can just say enemy destroyed and say UI decrease enemy display. And in UI, I can just write that function. Let's see. Decrease enemy display. It returns nothing. And I can say player live, enemy grid container, remove child, and I just need to remove the last child, right? So enemy grid container get child, and I need to pass the index, and I need to know the last index of our child. So that's gonna be last child in grid index is going to be player lives, enemy grid container get child count -1. And that should decrease the display. So let's see. I need to, oh, this is like the armor tank. And I think this is working. Yeah, when the tank gets destroyed, we decrease the amount of displayed tanks. So this works very good. Okay, also, if we lose a life, right, this is currently not being handled correctly. But managing the lives, our lives, is something we'll handle in the next section. So I see you there. Goodbye.